This right here is the Adidas Adios Boston 12. It's the latest shoe in Adidas' Boston line of shoes, obviously, and it's had some changes. Now, I've been using this shoe for 266 miles now. I've had it for a couple of months, and I'm currently training for a sub-3 marathon, and this is pretty much my go-to shoe. I'm going to talk a little bit about the kind of running I do in it, what types of sessions I do in this shoe. I'm going to give you my thoughts on it, but right off the bat, I will say I'll be buying another pair of these. As I said, I've done 266 miles on these now, and it's my favorite ever shoe. It's my first ever Adidas shoe as well. Normally, I race in Nike shoes, the Vaporflies, and I train mostly in kind of New Balances, or I've got the Pegasus 40s as well. But ever since I've got this, when I'm doing a long run, when I'm doing a speed session, this is the shoe I want to wear. Now, occasionally, on some of these faster runs for the sub-3, I have been wearing Vaporflies, but just for standard training, which this shoe is designed for, I absolutely love it, and it's a shoe that I will gravitate towards and want to put on. So let's go ahead and break down some of kind of the tech specs of the shoe, the boring stuff. Again, I'm no expert runner. I've currently only got 3:28 in the marathon. I'm completely average runner, not an athlete at all, and I'm not an expert in shoes by any means. So this is just kind of my thoughts as an average runner on whether or not, it's good for people in that 3 to 4 hour range for kind of marathons. And maybe if you're training, I've been using this for 5Ks and 10K running as well. So yeah, let's get into the tech specs and see what this shoe is made of, how it's structured, and some of the downsides as well as the upsides of the shoe. In terms of tech specs for this shoe, it is a neutral shoe made for neutral runners, and it's made to run on pretty much road running or sort of light trail work. And as the name suggests, it's kind of a marathon shoe for people doing long, hard miles in a marathon training block. It's named after the Boston Marathon. This thing is great for just putting in those long, hard miles over a block. As I said, I've clocked up 266 miles already in this thing, and it seems to still be in really, really good condition. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But this shoe is made for that mid to long distance running. In terms of our stack height here, the forefoot height is 31 millimeters and the heel height is 38 millimeters. So you've got about a 7 millimeter drop there on the shoe. In terms of weight, it's a fairly light shoe. It's actually very light. It comes in, I think, about 40 grams lighter than the previous version of the Boston shoe. And for a men's US 9.5, it's 267 grams. So that's the main tech specs of the shoe. Now let's talk about the structure of it here. One of the things I noticed when I took these out of the box, again, as first time I have kind of an Adidas shoe, the first thing I noticed is the upper here. Rather than like a fabric-y material, I would call this more like a kind of light plastic. It's quite rigid, especially around this heel area right here. This is quite hard, and over time it has softened up a bit for sure. But right around in this heel here, it was quite rigid when you first take it out of the box, and in around the heel, it was quite hard, and that worried me. Right off the bat when I took it out, I thought, I'm going to get blisters for this. It's definitely going to blister my feet. But over time, it's softened up here when I'm kind of feeling it. And I haven't had any issues with blistering in this shoe at all. The shoe itself has a reasonably wide foot here. If you've got a wider foot, I think it'll fit pretty well for you. And then in terms of the lacing system here, it has this nice soft fabric on the lacing system here at the top. And then you've got all of your lacing going in round. You've kind of got these little loops here that it goes in through. Now, I do use a runner's loop to kind of lock this shoe down a little bit. I'm using a UK 9.5, which is my standard size, and it did feel slightly big when I first put it on, but just tying it with the runner's loop. Again, I have to do the same with the Vaporflies as well. I like to have a little bit more room in the shoe rather than a little bit too little room in the shoe, obviously. So yeah, I've locked it down with that, and these are perfectly fine for my true size. At the bottom of the shoe here, you've got Continental rubber, which is obviously the tire company, and they have went ahead and they're creating the foam for this shoe, and overall it looks pretty good. It's still holding up. There's still a good bit of grip on the bottom there after 266 miles, and it's made in kind of two pieces, and you can actually see, we'll talk about it in a second, but there's these energy rods in the center of the shoe there, which can be seen through the bottom of the shoe. Now, I haven't had any issues with like stones or anything sticking in there, but if you're trail running, that could become a problem. And then at the back of the shoe, you have another 2 pieces of Continental rubber here on the outsole. So this stuff seems really, really good on the kind of wear and tear. Obviously made by Continental, which are a tire brand, so you'd imagine they know a thing or two about creating durable rubber. In the midsole section here, you've got 2 pieces of Light Strike Pro foam, which is Adidas's kind of energy return foam, and in between the 2 pieces you've got those energy rods there, which I was talking about. Those Light Strike rods there are to give better energy return when you're running and kind of make running a little bit easier at faster paces. Now, when I wear these, they're definitely not up there in terms of like Vaporfly, where I feel I can run a little bit quicker with the same effort, but compare this to something like a Pegasus, it's definitely sitting in between the 2. So if you compare, you know, you've got the Pegasus over here, you've got the Vaporfly here. These definitely sit right in the middle, and I feel like when I run in these, I am kind of running at higher paces with a slightly lower heart rate than I would be if I was wearing something like the Pegasus. So I don't know if that's these rods here. I don't know if it's placebo effect, but I definitely enjoy putting these on. They feel a lot easier to run in than the standard shoes like the New Balance 1080s or the Pegasus 40s. In terms of durability of the shoe, this thing has held up really, really well. I'm still running in these with 266 miles. Obviously, you want to start changing your shoes out in around 350 to 400 miles. I'm, hammering these pretty hard. It's a lot of speed sessions in them. I've done a couple of 5K races in them as well, and they've held up really, really well. I honestly don't see myself replacing these anytime soon. I'm not starting to get any niggles or anything like that at this point. I do switch my shoes out, so I'm wearing these probably 3 times a week, and then I'll wear the Vaporflies, 1 or 2 days, and I'll wear just one of my training shoes another day. So I am kind of rotating out, giving them time to recover after kind of a long run. And yeah, they've held up really, really well in terms of durability. As I previously mentioned, in terms of speed, these things feel great. I wouldn't quite call it a super shoe, and I don't think Adidas advertise it as such, but it does have the full length Light Strike rods in there. I think the previous version of the Boston only had the Light Strike rods for about half of the shoe, or the rods were about half of the size. So supposedly you're getting more energy return with this structure. So I'll put a photo on the screen here and you can see exactly how the shoe kind of breaks down. But in my head, and looking at the numbers in my runs, it's just so much easier to run in these versus a regular shoe for speed work and long runs. Long runs in particular, it's honestly the only shoe I would wear now. I would not go back to running a long run in like Pegasus 40s or something like that. These things have just become my go-to. I'm excited to put them on every time I wear them, and I would highly recommend grabbing a pair if you haven't. I will be grabbing another pair. I know I've got, I think, close to 3 months here until my marathon, December 3rd in Valencia. I'm going to be getting another pair to train in because these will probably be done in a few weeks here as I log more miles on them. But rather than buying something else or trying a different shoe, which I normally like to do, I think I'm just going to pick up another pair of them because I've really, really enjoyed them as a training shoe. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you have got a pair of them, you've bought a pair before, or you're wearing them right now. What are your thoughts on them? Have you enjoyed them? And let me know if there's any other shoes that you think I should check out, as I do like these. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please go ahead and subscribe if you're new here. Hit the like button, and I'll see you guys in the next one.